And welcome back to everyone, to all our holy siblings, and to everyone in quarantine mode. All right, this is Relationship Pneumatology Live. Back at it again with your hosts, Zain and Ketura. Ketura, give everybody a shout out.
Hey everyone, I'm Ketura, as you would have heard me mention in the last podcast, and we're coming to you from Trinidad and Tobago. It's a beautiful day out here. I hope it is by you as well.
Yes, it is indeed a beautiful day. And as the rest of the world, we are in quarantine mode. So as we said yesterday, the series is actually birthed within this quarantine mode, where it's most suitable time to take with your to assess and consider the quality of your relationships with your spouse, significant other, family, friends, and even long distance relationships. All right. So today in particular, yesterday we took a look at 7 myths out of many myths that exist within the world today that we have actually gotten from, whether it is psychology, online blogs, Hollywood, family, friends, broken relationships that we use as a reference point, cultural reference points, societal reference points, whatever it is. We covered actually just 7 out of probably a million myths that exist concerning relationships. And today, what we are actually going to be doing is taking a look at the first myth that we covered yesterday. Right? And the first myth that we covered yesterday was what, Kelly?
Great relationships are effortless because true love is enough.
Great relationships are effortless because true love is enough. Yeah, enough love. So, Kelly, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I understand as everything here, everything that is in this society, I mean, even the microphone that we're using, the computers, they were all built by understanding the mechanics of it. And the mechanic of it understands how to have it function in its full capacity. So my perspective is that relationships are no different from everything else out here, where once you understand the mechanics of the relationship, you can maximize on it and experience that romance, that love, that passion, whatever it is that you desire out of the connection. If you take the effortless approach, my understanding is that that is, if you are of the perspective that relationships are effortless and that love is just enough, then technically what you're doing is taking the responsibility off of yourself and putting it on to somebody else or something else.
Right. Right. So that's that's actually an awesome perspective, and one where it is a responsible perspective. So let's take that right there and break it up into parts within the next 20 minutes and then reassemble it and show everybody how unintelligent that perspective is.
All right, let's do this.
So the first thing that we actually are going to look at, it says what? What's the myth?
Great relationships are effortless because true love is enough.
Right, so let's take apart the two concepts that they mentioned. That's actually mentioned in that myth: relationship and love. Right, so it says great relationships are effortless. Now, the first question that we actually have to take a look at here is, what is a relationship?
Okay.
And what is the definition of a relationship objectively? And then what is your perspective? What is everyone's personal perspective of what a relationship is? So, for example, the first thing that we actually want to take a look at is if you actually ask any and everybody what a relationship is, you get 1,000,000 responses. Right? We actually did a session on that with regards to the pneumatology of Christ just recently. You remember some of the responses that we got?
Yeah.
And some of the responses that we documented. What is a relationship? And most people will actually tell you a relationship is where you have feelings for the next person. And both of you have feelings for each other.
Right.
And then some persons will actually, as a matter of fact, your dictionary actually also define a relationship as a sexual friendship. Yeah. Yeah. And actually most people's understanding of what a relationship is actually a very Western perspective. And most of us within this Western world that we are come up in, you use these definitions without questioning it. Use
So
definitions.
when you say Western perspective, what do you mean by that? For those who are listening.
So when we say Western in particular, we gotta actually go back in our history here. And whether most persons like to know history or not, the fact is the history is responsible for the present.
Right.
When it comes to this world, your history is responsible for the product and the fruit of the present reality. Right? And historically speaking, we had, when you're most people actually even read the Bible, read a lot of texts that predates the Western culture in particular, and within history in particular, there was a time frame where Rome took over the world, and Rome was a very pluralist society, so they incorporated all the cultures and the gods and
Right.
the ceremonial practices of the different regions that they came into. And one of the places that they actually had some rulership over was actually well, not really rulership over, but I'm giving the context of Rome there, and then you had Greece, what is known as Greece today. Right? And so the civilization that we know today, especially on this side of the globe, where what is actually called the Americas, is very influenced by the Greco-Roman perspective. And for those of you who do not know what Greco-Roman is, it will take some time for me to actually break that down for you. I just actually thought about doing it and then stopped it because that will actually consume probably about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you leave that for homework.
It's really that for homework. Go and actually research what is the Greco-Roman, what Greco-Roman means. Right. And the Greco-Roman perspective is a perspective that, just as the word says, there's actually Greek perspective, and that is also incorporated with Roman perspectives, which is actually considered Western.
Okay.
Again, I can't break that down in this session. It's actually going to take about 20 minutes for me to walk you through that. But just for the listeners and viewers, you can research that, right? And for those of you who actually even read the Bible actually predates the Greco-Roman culture and the Greco-Roman perspective. And for those of you who actually know a little Greek history, you know that the Greeks in particular, they were very, very, very accustomed to cultural practices like sitting down in plazas and speaking about what this might be and what this may be. They actually call a lot of them philosophers today, right? And these philosophers in particular, their theories have been incorporated into the society, into perspective. They actually incorporated into the system of thought, and all of that encompasses this Greco-Roman perspective.
Okay.
So a lot of what we believe, the concepts that we attribute to a lot of words and concepts that we attribute a lot of words in this Western society. I'm using the word Western again, not Greek Roman anymore. It's actually as a product of what these guys mused on, what they sat and thought about, that this could be without any objective reference point. Right?
Gotcha.
So the Western perspective is more or less an opinionated perspective, because what these guys mused on were opinions.
Gotcha.
And so even the context of relationship is opinionated. It is subjective. It is something that they thought, okay, this could be this, because they didn't have an objective reference point.
So are you saying then that if you have a Western perspective of relationship,
Okay, Kelly just freeze there. All right, you just froze there. Say again.
are you saying that if you have a Western perspective of relationships, that there's a high possibility that your perspective is not objective but purely subjective?
It's 100% subjective, and not at all objective.
Okay.
And for those of you
So,
hearing those terms for the first time, I just recommend that you just pause this video right here and go to Merriam-Webster dictionary and see what objective and subjective mean. So the Western society is very subjective, and so if you're approaching relationships in particular from the Western perspective, you are going to crash, because the perspective is not anything objective or anything that is functional. It's just somebody's opinion that you're working with, and somebody's opinion that was not tested, that was not exercised, and you actually using it as your reference point.
right. I actually got the definition of the word objective here so that I could bring a clearer understanding to what we're talking about. Expressing, we'll go to the definition, expressing or dealing with facts or conditions as perceived without distortion by personal feelings, prejudices, or interpretations.
While the subjective is always according to thoughts, feelings, prejudices, and interpretations.
Right, gotcha.
Right, so somebody has a bias somewhere, and that's what you're using. Now, objectively, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask then, so what objectively then is a relationship?
Right, so one of the texts that you can refer to that predates the Western perspective, as I said, is the Bible. Right, and the Bible in particular is a book where we understand that there was a nation called Israel that was in direct contact with God and did some miraculous things, which means the miraculous things that we in our institute have actually proven to be true. And by the mechanics that we have actually proven to be true and real, because it is demonstrable, then we understand that the Bible in particular is a good source of a good resource to use as a reference point for spiritual mechanics.
Right.
Especially as it actually we put it actually to the test and see the things manifest. It's a good source of spiritual mechanics. These spiritual mechanics we call energetic mechanics. And so in the Bible, a relationship is the Western perspective of a relationship is not. It is not to say the least, it is not acknowledged by the Bible. The Bible does not share the same perspective.
Okay.
When I say the Bible, I'm talking about the authors of those texts, both Old Testament texts and New Testament. They do not share the Western perspective of what a relationship is. Now, in the Bible, you hear the terms Old Covenant and New Covenant.
Yeah.
And a covenant is another word for relationship. So some of you hearing that for the first time. Covenant is another word for relationship. A covenant is also a contract. So you can say the old covenant is the old relationship agreement, and the new covenant is a new relationship agreement.
Right.
And there's the answer to your question. A relationship is an agreement. So if you actually take a look at what a relationship is, it is defined as a connection. And in the Bible, God's old relationship, which everybody knows as the 613 commandments, was actually a mutually entered relationship. It was not some divine command, and if you don't follow the command, boom, 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 thunder started roll and things like that. It didn't work like that. And it was God actually presented them, hey, this is the agreement here.
Right.
I propose you all make these 613 promises. I have
Right.
I have my promises on my side. I will make my word, my promises. If you all agree with what I presented, you all make that your promises, and we enter into relationship.
Right.
Right.
So relationship is an agreement.
Right. So if we apply that to the Western society, what the Bible actually called commandments are really what we would call in our culture expectations.
Right.
So really, a relationship is a connection formalized by a connection that is not, let's not use the word formalized, but made functional.
Okay.
Functionalized by an agreement where both parties sits and express sincerely, without
Right.
reservation, what the expectations are. And if both parties agree, let's say with regards to relationship between the relationship between two persons, the man would listen to the expectations of the woman, and if he agrees, he will take on her expectations as his promises to her.
Right.
And vice versa. The woman listens to the expectations of the man, and if there's mutual agreement, it is reasonable that it can be mutually agreed upon, she will actually take on his expectations as her promises. So it's actually, so both, so in that case, you come into a relationship and both persons actually have a responsibility to
So
each
they
other.
exchange. Right.
They exchange
On both
promises.
sides. Yeah.
Right? So if you actually look at it, so if you put it into perspective, then once you enter the relationship, you have a responsibility to each other.
Gotcha.
Right? And I ain't talking breaking down the relationship into its pillars as yet, into its various components.
So we're just on the baseline, talking about like the foundation of the relationship.
Just what the concept, what all we're doing is talking about the concept of what a relationship is.
So when we take that concept now and integrate it into this myth
All right.
where relationships.
So if actually it says that, what was the myth?
Great relationships are effortless because true love. Okay.
So we just identify a relationship is actually comes with personal responsibility.
Right.
That myth says it is effortless.
Which means that it takes no labor.
No responsibility.
No responsibility on both sides.
Now, let's actually just go a little further into that concept. Is that when you actually take on, so let's work into what love is in, all right? Because if you ask the Western, the typical Western, what love is, they say a feeling. If he loves me, he will give me this.
Right.
If he loves me, he will give me that. If he loves me, he will do this. If he loves me, he will do that. Right? And in comparison to what we just mentioned, our relationship is with his expressed expectations, the typical Westerner does not understand that. So they enter into a relationship where we say, okay, we're in a relationship without expressed expectations. So both parties do not know what the other expects. And the illogical part of it is that they hold each other responsible to the expectations that they never expressed. So both parties are at a disadvantage.
Right. That's very disadvantageous. If
I
don't know what you want, then I'm just going to go on mere speculation, and in little to no time, it's going to come crumbling down because...
Not only are you moving on your speculation, but the only thing you could work with is what your personal definition of a relationship is.
Right. Which could be very subjective.
And here's a simple example here. In the context of relationship, what a personal definition of relationship is varies because nobody has an objective reference point. So some persons might think, well, if you love me, you're supposed to cook for me every day.
Yeah, I've heard this nonsense.
Then there are persons who went, if you love me, you had to love my child first.
Yeah, a lot of women talk that.
Yeah. And all of these things taking place. So you actually have the person at a disadvantage. And technically, what you're technically saying is, well, if you're with me, your telepathy should be strong.
Real good.
Right? So we just debunk that myth. That myth there is nonsense. It is unintelligent.
It's funny, yeah, because when you look at it, let's just look at the definition of the word effortless, having little or no effort. And you look at synonyms for effortless. One of the synonyms that stood out to me is hands down. That hands down approach,
No responsibility.
well, exactly
You
boils
don't have
down
to
to
do
that.
anything.
And we're not
Your
talking
hands
about
not working. It down.
exactly. And we're not
Relax
talking about
yourself.
washing and cooking and all this kind of thing. You know, we're talking about responsibility in the relationship, not chores.
But as we are on that topic, what usually takes place is because there are no express expectations and no mutual agreement and no mutual expressed expectations. What happens is that the person enters a relationship, and just as you said, just as the myth says, they give the responsibility of the person that they're with for the relationship to move forward. So it's
And
all
10
based
to
on
1,
what they do.
10 to 1, 10 to 1 woman. I'm speaking here. 10 to 1
No,
on
men do
behalf
it.
of the woman. A
Men do it
lot
too.
of women.
Men do it too. Just that, as I said, there is no um, there is
Gender bias.
no preponderance here, no outweighing of the gender, because both genders doing it in their own way. Just that
Right.
women may do it in a way because they culturally and the societally express. They are culturally and societally trained to express it in one way.
Well, and
Whilst
I've been,
whilst men are also culturally and societally trained to express it in a different way, and they're actually doing the same thing, just in two separate methods of expression.
right.
That makes sense.
It makes sense. Because I've been around women and a lot of women I've been around with, I mean, it's all over social media and stuff like that, Instagram, where Facebook, they'll share posts of what they expect a man to do if he loves
Yeah.
them.
Always have a
And
list. Watch me, the
treat
list long 100 conditions that the man and
he
but
has to do this, he has to treat me like this. And
men do it too. Yes,
really?
in different ways. Right? And if you actually ask both parties, if you ask the woman, okay, you have this long list. Great. We're happy for you. But do you know? Number one, does the man know? Well, did you express that expectation at the beginning of the relationship?
It would be unfair if you didn't.
If you didn't.
It will be, yeah.
Number two, if this is a relationship, do you know the man's list? Because this, which is actually brings us to the context of love. So in the objective context of relationship, when there's expressed expectations, what stimulates the love is when the both parties keep their promises.
Right.
When both parties keep their promises to each other, they express the expectations, taking on as promises, each other's promises to each other. And that is actually met. What you have there is you are building, by consistently meeting them, you are building a record of trustworthiness.
So is that where the second part comes in?
Yeah, this is what I'm going into. And this is what
Because true
you
love is
actually talking
enough.
about. So because true love is enough, but what we actually come into is an objective understanding of love. And then we measure that to the Western perspective, and you see
Right.
the massive chasm of a difference. Right? So when these two parties actually keep their promises to each other, energetically, what that does is create an atmosphere of trustworthiness. And in that atmosphere of trustworthiness, keeping the responsibilities to each other like that inspires the spirit or the energy of that person to begin to flow stronger.
So that's exactly what takes place in the early of relationships. where there's an exchange of information passed in on both sides. Because you're
Right.
now getting to know this person, and he would express, well, you know, I'm into this, she,
Uh-huh.
I'm into this, and then you start to feel this too, and you start to think, all right, this
So the
is good, this is
energy,
going to work out.
energy starting to
Exactly.
flow. And the
Then you get
energy and this,
inspired,
right.
and then they start doing romantic things, carrying roses and whatever the case may be. And then
Right.
people wonder, why does that die out?
Why? Because the moment they actually express, well, we enter into a relationship with each other, all of the expressed expectations stop. Now everything becomes unspoken, and you have
And
to
then
figure
there's the
it out.
hands down approach
Hands down approach.
now.
You're not actually taking on the responsibility to inspire your partner. You stop, hands down, and the partner now is responsible for serving your emotional importance.
So this is where you're saying then that um, between the two persons, there must be throughout the entire relationship, as long as the relationship exists, there must be continuous exchange of communication, of promises, of expectations, of
No,
feedback
no,
from
no,
that.
no, no.
What is that you're saying?
What I'm actually saying is that the express expectations must be the keeping of your promises.
Mm-hmm.
When you express the expectations I mentioned, each party take on the promise, the express expectations.
Right.
The partners express expectations as their promises, and once they keep that, it creates an atmosphere of trustworthiness that allows the energy to flow stronger, the spirits to connect.
So you're saying then that once the expressed expectations are continuously met,
Uh-huh.
there is going to be a continuous flow of inspiration between the two.
Uh-huh.
Okay, gotcha.
And that actually inspires the energy to flow for each
Mm-hmm.
other, which is exactly what you said, what they experience at the beginning of a relationship, what people actually call courtship.
Right.
So really in the Western society, courtship is really where, even though they don't know it, they actually use an objective perspective because they're inspiring each other. Yeah? They're inspiring the energy, they're inspiring the spirit of the
Mm-hmm.
person. And as soon as they say, let's step into a relationship, everybody put their hands down, and the next person now is responsible
And then
for
the entitlement kicks in.
entitlement kicking.
You
They
expect
believe they
a certain
deserve,
thing.
right? So you
Yeah, I
expect the
deserve
person to do
this.
this. And if they're not meeting your expectations, they say, oh, he's a bad man, he's lazy man, or
Yeah.
she's a lazy woman, she want to do that. And so then that takes place, and they go by the genders. So the woman go by her female partners, and the men go by his male partners to talk about how to fix the relationship. And now, and there are two what do you call it, two disadvantageous points there. That one, they go into their own gender. As I said, we come back to the gender bias in society. They go into their own
Mm-hmm.
gender to speak about the other gender as though the other gender is another animal. When really and truly it's their own unintelligence concerning the mechanics of the relationship that is beating them.
So in reality, they should not be going to the same, well, to the specific gender for counsel, but they should be assessing their understanding
They should be
of,
assessing the relationship mechanic. And
right.
if you really want to understand how to please the next person, then a conversation should be taking place to hear from that person what their expectations are. Again, we come back to the same thing. And people go to therapy to do that.
Exactly.
When all else fails, which proves that your perspective of relationship was nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
was unintelligent, now you have to find a therapist to sit down so that both of you could hear your expectations, and then there's a possibility of the relationship working. So what you should have done from the beginning, you're doing at the
And
last.
the end.
Right? Now, when you inspire that, then that inspires that energy, and that is actually what inspires love. So then when you come back to that myth, what true love they're talking about? Because according to the context of relationship, true love requires responsibilities,
Right.
a personal responsibility to inspire. the other person by understanding what each other's expectations are and keeping your promises to build trustworthiness so that there would be an atmosphere for that spirit to flow to each other. Inspire that spirit to flow to you, and he or she inspires that your spirit to flow to them. And that is actually what you're referring to as love. That emotion, that passion. Emotion and passion is just an expression of spirit, of let's say spiritual release to the other
Gotcha.
person. That works not only in the humanistic aspect, it works romantically, it works in the friendship relationship, it works in the sexual connection. Most people don't have sexual connections because of this, because they approach the relationship with entitlement.
So when you say entitlement, I just want to share with our listeners the definition. These definitions are really, really important. Again,
Yeah,
we want to make sure that we don't apply our own subjective perspectives to these things, even when we think that we may already know.
yeah.
So I have the definition of entitlement here, which says the feeling or belief that you deserve to be given something, such as special privileges.
Uh,
When we're breaking this down, this may connect the dots for those
yeah.
who are listening.
Yeah, because a lot of people actually they hear these words and they have cultural definitions that they attribute to it and not really the actual definition of the word.
Yes, so it's important to go back to the precious Merriam-Webster dictionary or whichever dictionary that you have access to get these definitions. I'm
So,
going to share
uh-huh.
one more thing I'd like to share. One more definition, as a matter of fact, where you have heard us mention the word subjective
Mm-hmm.
many times on this podcast as well as the others. And the definition that we're going to go with here is based on feelings or opinions rather than facts. So
Mm-hmm.
when you hear us mention that the perspective is subjective, means that there is nothing objective, there's no facts. You're just moving based on your opinions or your feelings.
And your opinions and your feelings and your own personal logic.
Exactly.
And that is another aspect that's actually incorporated in the Western perspective of relationship, is that you have a subjective perspective of what relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
You're holding the other person responsible to it. Do you know that what you're doing is mental oppression? Because what you're
Yes,
doing
it is.
is actually demanding that the other person bow to your definition, to serve your definition, to serve what you think it should be. So you
And
just
many
become a mental and emotional oppressor.
many people do this unknowingly sometimes because they
Mm-hmm.
understand that a lot of the influences from society impact our decisions and our perspectives, how we see things, generally speaking. Now, I'm
Right.
not too sure how much time do we have left on this session before we
I'm not.
elaborate.
I'm not certain.
Okay, but
Really.
I know time is going to be
Yeah.
because we have half hour markings that we aim to keep this within. But a lot of women, and this is something that we'd like you all to consider, a lot of women, I'm speaking here on behalf of what I know with the Women's Society, right? And
Mm.
Zane will share with respect to what men have been sharing.
Right.
A lot of women have the perspective that um, responsibility in a relationship or a marriage in particular is mainly ensuring that the man's needs, and they're referring to like physical needs when it's like hunger and stuff like that, are met.
Yeah.
But we would like to encourage you to think outside of that box, because if that is not his, as we said, if he did not share that as an expectation at the commencement of the relationship, then you might be indulging in something that only you alone judge the relationship by. Because
Yeah. And go ahead. Go ahead.
I've come into contact with many women, and they have been they ended up in divorces or relationships that were broken down, irretrievably broken down, something that was not mendable, because they took that perspective and applied it into the relationship and were
Mm-hmm.
busy cooking and cleaning and trying to ensure that, you know, his stomach is full and whatever the case is, and there were other aspects of the relationship that they neglected.
No, but what they actually do is that they write on a nice long list what they were taught by society and culture.
Yes.
A relationship is supposed to be, and they get in the relationship and they meet these requirements, right? Faithfully meet these requirements, and then say, well, I'm a good woman and I'm a good man.
I've heard that.
But a good woman and a good man to whom and to what? Because
Exactly.
if in a relationship, the relationship is actually mutual agreement and express expectations, then shouldn't the relationship agreement determine what is a good man and a good woman in that relationship?
Indeed.
So what you've actually done is that you made this agreement to be together. There was no express expectations, and you come in with your external list.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, what you're doing there is being self-righteous.
Yes.
Because you have your own perspective, and you actually being righteous according to your own perspective.
Yes.
And you have actually communicated with the person to actually get any information from them as to what is needed or what you disagree with or anything like that.
So you're convinced that your own actions
and your self-righteousness will destroy your relationship. And after you say, well, he was not a good man, no. Or he was not, or she was not a good woman, no. You with the self-righteous man, or you with the self-righteous woman, that person is better off without you, really. Because you was never a relationship in the first place. You were there enslaving the person to be to your perspectives. And so you there as the emotional lord, bow
no
to
bowing
my
here.
bow to my emotional laws.
All right. Well, actually, we're going to end on that note. As we said with these sessions, we're going to keep them very brief so that you can understand, come into an understanding of something, and at the same time, we would like you to continue chewing on it and questioning your relationships.
Right, and these sessions, as Katura is actually saying, is designed to encourage you to put your relationship into the workshop within the quarantine period, and there is a massive opportunity here for you to come into the workshop, reassess it, find objective reference points for the definitions that you're using of the concepts that you think you know about. So that after this quarantine period, you can actually come with a relationship that inspires love and passion, that romantically it inspires emotional warmth.
Yeah.
Even on the sexual aspect of the relationship, it inspires a forest fire of passion. Right? But these things have to be reassessed.
And that's something we're going to talk on too. We're
right?
not neglecting that as well.
And at the end of this, before the end of this quarantine period, we're actually going to be running a 7-day challenge, a 7-day relationship kindling challenge, where you can click on the link that we're posting above in the description of this video. And or if we share it, of course, the description will be at the bottom if we are in the forums that we share this in. But basically what I'm saying is within that 7-day period, we're actually going to break down what relationship is step by step to give you the basics of what you need to rekindle your relationship within this quarantine period. If you're willing to actually stop and question if what you think is subjective or is objective, if you're willing to actually put down your self-righteousness and actually apply mechanical, energetic mechanics to your relationship, right? And this, of course, in particular, will be running for 7 days. It's a 7-day rekindling challenge. And if you're all actually interested, if anyone listening to this is interested in actually relationship coaching, because I'm actually a relationship pneumatology coach, we will also actually present you with packages that we would have. And that in particular would be something that if you are single and you want to actually know, well, why relationships weren't working, this may be a good opportunity for you. Now, I'm not speaking about the coaching in particular, the relationship coaching, the one-on-one coaching, or the group coaching, because we will also have a relationship coaching class, right? That is actually available to everyone. And that, of course, would come at a fee, and as well as the relationship coaching. But if you Want to know why relationships weren't working? You're not in a relationship now. Why relationships always crashing? This will be good information for you, even this challenge. Right? So click the link that we post above this and register. Come into the community. Right? We'll be dropping a free ebook on about 3 to 5 things that you can do within this quarantine period to start to turn your relationship around. Right? And if you are in a relationship and it's not working, now this is not therapy. This is not relationship therapy. We're not therapists. We are a relationship pneumatology coach. I'm a relationship pneumatology coach. So what I'm actually doing is calling you into question on your concepts and giving you the right concepts. And if you apply it, you will see how you will have a relationship that will have a divine energy that's actually flowing through that.
Proven and tested.
Proven and tested. All right. And by the way, both Kelly and I are a couple, for those of you who don't know. And this is actually proven and tested between us also. So
we don't put out what we don't test.
we don't test. We also share this with other couples.
Yes.
And have actually turned their relationship around. So we don't do, we do not teach, we do not share, what we do not reproduce.
That's our motto.
That's our motto, right? So stay tuned. Look forward to the next episode coming up, where we'll be addressing the next myth. So the first myth, burnt
to the ground.
We just put some gas on that and light it.
Watch the bonfire.
I understand. So stay tuned, holy siblings, and everyone watching this. Revamp the relationship. Rekindle the fire. You deserve it. Why waste your time?
Don't waste my time.
Two spirits can become one. Blessings and much love.
Blessings and love.